So Implock.io delivers on the vision and building a scalable, secure blockchain or infrastructure platform, or supports the development for it, because this is what we urgently need to reorganize society and find ways to enable mass collaboration, which is urgently needed to face the existential risks we have right now as a species, and to find out ways how we can reinvent governance, how we can reinvent ecosystem, or say the way how we actually run our economy, and how we might be able to incentivize for models which take in consideration more than maximizing profits, but other aspects, so that we find ways to create sustainable ecosystems which are human-centric, I would say. So, and Blockio is a way to ensure that we are able to organize as a group to meet our, obviously, economic needs as well. Reaching out to the community, growing the idea that we can take responsibility, that we can earn money with the work we love and with the purpose we see in the work we do. And that's the reason why we support RCON.
It's actually quite interesting because Tim talked about that we need some kind of infrastructure for distributed governance in order to solve some coordination problems. And I actually met Tim the first time at a Blockchain for Society meetup in Hamburg. And I immediately thought, okay, this guy needs to come to the governance forum, the RCON governance forum, which took place just 2 weeks prior to that meetup event, and just talked to Tim about that. And I just sent Greg an email, here we too want to come over to Seattle, is that okay? And then we just flew over to Seattle and had some great time.
It was crazy because like 2 weeks after the meetup was a very short time frame, but I immediately figured out that this is a very good idea. And I was super grateful because the Meetup for Society meetups were exactly for speaking about the values we share and what we need to reinvent society. And the idea was to attract those people which are resonating with it. And that's the reason why Philipp was there. Yeah. And this played out very, very well. And the people which were there are partly now a part of the Implockio team. So it's great to have people which are connecting through values. And the governance conference in Seattle was the first time the broader community came together for a long time, right?
Yeah, I actually think it was the first time when a lot of RCON members met the first time, see each other. It was the first time when we could map a certain Discord handle through face. So it's quite funny, yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty impressive to see how all the gathering happened there, and I felt directly included. And with being there, it was clear that the conversations will continue. And today we delivered 3 meetups for RCON. We have other meetups planned. We will be in Amsterdam giving an update on the RCON3 on the 18th of September. And this all continues, development continues, and I can only emphasize again that this is really driven by the community and what people take up for responsibilities, as we see now with you being involved so deeply in the testnet, right?
Yeah, and I mean it's a quite important step. We had Bitcoin, which opened the door and opened the minds of all those people that basically there's a way to coordinate and to find a mechanism that people come to agree on a distributed ledger, and on account balances on a distributed ledger. And Ethereum came around and said, okay, just instead of having these count balances only, we just distribute the state of the local machine and come on consensus about that. And now RCON comes around and brings a new total feature set to the blockchain world. And again, we're entering unknown territory, and kind of this there's a need in order to battle test these infrastructure and the components that are, I mean, if we're talking about that RChain is the infrastructure for distributed governance at a global scale, then this is a mission critical infrastructure, and we need to make sure that everything is working fine and that it is battle proofed. Currently my task within this RChain ecosystem is to design a program within the testnet to incentivize participation, so that every component of RChain will get battle tested, and a lot of load is put on each component.
If you think about distributed governance, this is not a problem of RChain. So distributed governance is a problem of the whole blockchain space. The question is, how can we manage ecosystems which are open source, which are run on public ledgers, where we have like participation of 200,000, 500,000, 1 million or plus people, because we never did that before. Open source projects usually get that around like leaders, which had a lot of charisma. They managed to be like 150, 200 people, except some projects like the Linux Foundation, which were bigger. But then we had all the like additional governance structures around that. You're speaking about a full new scale of distributed open systems, and we don't really know exactly how we can efficiently manage those communities, and this is exactly what we'd like to explore. And the prerequisites for that are obviously identities. If we want to have one person, one vote, I mean there's no consent if this is really, or no consensus around if we really would like to have one person, one vote. Some people have different opinions there. Some people say we should have votes based on stakes, right? And then it's like more like a plutocracy than a democracy. So everything is open, what you can build on it. But in the end, without infrastructure, without identities, without voting protocols and decision-making functions, nothing of this will happen.
So I might add to this, so at the core level of distributed governance, I see the three core tools we need. This is on the one hand an identity system, second is kind of way to measure sentiments and opinions, and the third one is kind of a voting system in order to make decisions.
In the end, we live in a world which is very, very fast changing. This means that the complexity we live in is massively changing our worldviews. So when you were born like 100 years ago, the fundamental changes you have to go through were like minor compared to what we live through today. So we say that like a world model needs to be updated after 5 years now because of the fast acceleration in the digital space. And this means I don't understand the complexity of the world. I'm not able as a single human to do so. I can just accept that I have a small fraction of reality, and that the best what I can do is like interconnect with bright people which have other opinions, other perspectives, to better grasp what the reality looks like. And I really, really like to have that idea about having conversations and forming gathering sentiment with the perspective of not I'm wrong or I'm right, but this is how I see it and how do you see it, because we start to actually really collaborate then, right? And we don't need to be right or wrong because we accept that we are all biased and that we all have only a fraction of reality we see.
I mean, in kind of way, meeting person face to face is a way of measuring their sentiment and getting their opinion. And the bandwidth is much larger than trying to get the same opinions on text, on chats, or whatsoever. But one has to ask the question, does that scale? And obviously you can't travel around the world and meet all those people in person you have contact with. So we need also tools in order to measure sentiments, opinions digitally.
Yeah.
And this is the way, I guess, that we can come to tools that scale at a global level. Yeah.
I mean, this is exactly the question of distributed governance. How do we scale, like forming consent? How we can do it in small groups? We know that, right? But how do we do that on a massive scale with 10 billion people? in the future, right? So the question there is, if we can't find minimum consent on a global level, how do we come up with global policies? How do we come up with policies for managing global systems, like, you know, like a global distributed RCON, right?
Mm-hmm.
We will not be able to do so if we don't find ways to form like a consensus or to collaborate efficiently on a digital level, which is independent from like the location we are in. And this includes enhancing throughput through communication means. For example, virtual reality might be very helpful, right?
Totally.
But there's also the thing, I can't do secure voting right now in my country because we don't have the digital processes for that, right? So how do we get secure voting processes? And voting is just a way to signal opinion at a specific point in time. How do I really can express like sentiment, right? This is a totally different story. And this is really the question. How can we scale social trust? Yeah. Furthermore, I think it's very important to understand that open source systems are open source, so you can take them, you can modify them, you can develop further on them. There is, some people say that, and it's like, yeah, you can do that. It's not really true, there's more to it. You need to have the knowledge, you need to have the education, obviously, for that reason, and you need to have the time to do that. And to be able to fully understand the platform like RCON, you need to have a team which is capable of understanding all aspects of it. So this is not trivial at all. So you can have an open source system, but it's like, it's not really come to flourish if there's only one community in the world, one team which really understands it in depth. So I believe it's very important to have like a distribution of knowledge and to be able to develop the platform most efficiently. And furthermore, also to understand what is the fundamental thing which is different here. I mean, there's like many open source projects, right, you can join. There is one thing which is very, very different in RCON, which is the computational model, which is coming from neural calculus, which was developed by Craig Meredith, is a breakthrough. It's an actor-based model, and I'm sure Philipp can say more about that. But this is what convinced me that we have a new like computational model we can use for distributed systems, which will become way more efficient if we can overcome the challenges we currently face.
Totally agree. I mean, if you look at current systems, especially blockchains, and if we assume that blockchains can be the infrastructure for example, distributed governance, we need to bring them to a global scale. And currently, blockchains just process each transaction sequentially, and that doesn't work. I mean, nature doesn't scale that way. If your cells in your body, they don't all sequentialize or synchronize. So we need other ways to achieve something, and by a lot of means, the row calculus scales in a similar way like nature does, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, hopefully in the next years we will be at Venus, the Mercury is past that, and we will have the full feature set that we envision now. Yeah. And this brings us the possibility to build, for example, distributed governance tools at a global scale. In parallel to that, we need to work on how we build how to build these tools, or how to build the mechanisms for the tools.
Yeah.
It's not only the tech side, this is also how people work together to achieve something. We also kind of have to include more people in the whole overall process. Currently, if you're looking around, it's mostly white male young people involved in the blockchain space. And we really need to include more people, yeah, and increase diversity.
I fully agree. I mean, we are building infrastructure. This infrastructure will be the foundation for future governance, future like companies and businesses. And this is if we are speaking about rebuilding the world, we are rebuilding the infrastructure for it. And I see that RCON can be one of those like backbone infrastructures if successful. And this means we need to be thoughtful about how we redesign it. Because if we, for example, take too much focus on the economic side, we will have way too overpowered validators, or we have bad valve distribution. We end up in a very similar structure that we have some people which are very empowered, very wealthy, and some people very, very strongly dependent and disempowered. I think it's very important to not repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And we can't stop repeating the mistakes if we only think with our brains. So I really believe that that part of the vision correct shares is a thing which comes from the heart, which is being human. What is our purpose? Is it work, or is there something else? Is there a spiritual side maybe to it? Is there say something where we want to envision a world where we let machine works and we devote ourselves to more creational work, right? So I hope that RCON can help to enable a backbone for society, to reinvent the way how we live, and to build fairer markets, and to build sustainable markets, and to build governance systems with direct participation. That is like the promise I have heard between the lines, and this is the promise I'm dedicated to. And I'm truly I would be very happy to see RCON ecosystem developing in that direction. Everything what we do with Implocue and engagement in RCON is dedicated to that goal.
Bring yourself in, try to become a co-op member, try to engage in the Discord or come to an event. I mean, it's about bringing yourself in, being heard, and overall coming to governance processes that work is bring many opinions to the table, and it's not like there's the one answer to it. I mean, it is, we need to figure it out, and we need more help with that. So
I can only emphasize that if you step up and if you engage in the community, in any blockchain community where you step up and push the boundaries, this is you become a thought leader, you become explorer. And we need people which step up and say, I'm sick with the status quo. I do not accept like being only on standby and passive. I want to be active, and you can be active. I think this is super hopeful, like being part of rebuilding the infrastructure we use for coordination, becoming co-op members, being able to actively engage and to shape it. That's something I think very powerful. I think this is when I look into the Implocue team and how we meet and how the team develops and all that, I think this is represented there as well. And I see that in the RCON community very strong as well. So we are all co-op members, right?
Yep.
So in the end, there's no boundary. Everybody can come in and can start to contribute and can start to be active.